And we're starting with Raw, where Braun Strowman faced Bronson Reed in the Last Monster Standing match, which was pure carnage from start to finish, and even saw the ring implode. The climax of the match saw the return of Seth Rollins, who delivered a stomp to Reed, which ultimately allowed Braun to get the win in a huge moment for the Visionary. On Instagram, WWE shared footage of Braun and Rollins after Raw, with Seth complimenting Strowman on a hell of a fight and raising his hand, but there's now been an unfortunate update. On Wrestling Observer Live, Bryan Alvarez reported that Braun Strowman suffered a torn groin in the match, and he was seen grabbing his thigh and groin area after a commercial break. Strowman was seen grabbing the area after Reed hit him with a Samoan drop, but the match continued with Braun attempting a spot where he'd knock Reed off the apron through some chairs. As he started running, though, it was clear that Braun was hurt as he struggled to walk along the ropes and was limping significantly, but was still able to knock Reed off the apron. After that, Strowman remained in the corner for an extended time, prompting the referee to communicate urgently with backstage personnel that something was wrong. A torn groin is likely a diagnosis based on the situation observed during the match, which will come as a blow to Braun's fans, and the severity of his groin injury remains uncertain. We don't know at this time whether he'll need extensive time off, but after returning to action this year, it's evident he won't be competing in the ring for the foreseeable future. Did you ever expect to see Braun Strowman getting injured like this during Raw last night? Leave your feedback in the comments section below. We mentioned that the ring imploded and collapsed under the weight of the two wrestlers, and while this is always a big spot, those in WWE didn't like how it went down. According to WrestleVotes, who spoke to Sportskeeda's Wrestle Binge podcast, WWE loved the performance of the wrestlers and the match, but the ring break spot just didn't quite hit right. The belief is that the spot didn't have the impact that it has had in the past, perhaps because many expected it given the size of Braun and Reed, and the instant reaction of WWE was oof. The ring break spot is always a big deal in WWE, and due to its nature, has to be saved for the end of a show, but WWE felt that this spot fell flat during Raw's main event this week. In recent days, Jacy has been vocal on social media about the disappearance of Journey Fatu, the brother of Jacob Fatu and nephew of WWE Hall of Famer Rikishi. A missing persons situation is a very serious matter and has sparked a lot of talk online, but now there's been a startling revelation about what's really going on. On social media, there has been a growing backlash against Fatu, with many believing that this is just a storyline, and a tasteless one at that, given the destruction caused by Hurricane Helene. In an update, Fatu admitted that this missing persons case has indeed been just a story, and apologized for emotional damage and distress caused by the Journey angle. Fatu added that he wasn't aware of the situation currently happening in the real world, and ended with the message, "This was only meant to be a story and it blew up, I'm sorry." The response to Fatu's apology was mixed, with some in the comments giving their own examples of missing relatives that puts into perspective this controversial angle. Ultimately, wrestling is about a suspension of disbelief, but many felt this angle went too far, especially with many people around the US and the world currently missing. But what do you think? Did this angle go too far, or is all fair in the name of trying to entertain in wrestling? Share your thoughts below. Now, WWE is home to one of the most diverse rosters in professional wrestling, but recently much has been said about the use, or lack thereof, of black talent at main roster PLEs. This weekend's Bad Blood event will mark WWE's third straight PLE without a black male superstar in action, and even when talent do compete, things aren't much better. The last time a black male superstar won a singles match at a PLE was back in Elimination Chamber 2023, when Bobby Lashley got a DQ win over Brock Lesnar. For the last time a black male superstar got a clean win at a PLE, you have to go back to SummerSlam 2022, when Lashley defeated Austin Theory in a US title match. With those alarming stats, many have called out WWE over this, and on Fightful Select's weekly podcast, it was said that WWE is aware of these issues. While this was not intentional, there is an expectation in WWE that it will be addressed moving forward, especially with the company's use of black male superstars in singles matches. In NXT, things have been much better, with Trick Williams being a top star at PLEs, and he emerged victorious on NXT's relaunch on the CW this week. It remains to be seen how WWE addresses its use of black superstars on the main roster, as many believe that there's a lot that needs to be done going forward. Over to NXT, which kicked off its new era on the CW with a new theme song and a new silver logo, as well as appearances by Shawn Michaels and Triple H. The two unveiled new NXT and NXT Women's Championships featuring the new logo in an exciting start for what would be a huge show for all involved. With the newly designed NXT Women's title on the line, Roxanne Perez found herself outmatched by Giulia throughout, a testament to the aura around the new signing. Since Giulia joined WWE, hype had built for a showdown with the Prodigy, and it was always going to be hard to live up to those expectations. That may be why the pair worked a match that was not WWE's clean, crisp style, and while it may have lacked polish, that's not due to a lack of chemistry. In fact, the two kept their footing well throughout, but we imagine that better results and execution will come as the pair tighten up in future matches. Hopefully the pair will be able to keep that fresh edge to their work even when they have more matches, something that is far too foreign in NXT. The finish of the match saw the referee distracted and Cora Jade lay out Giulia with a double underhook DDT on the floor before Perez hit Pop Rocks to get the win. The result was a genuine shock, though Stephanie Vaquer's arrival should have served as a tip-off last week that Perez would still be in the title picture after this show. Jade's arrival adds some complications to the suddenly loaded main event scene of the women, though this win will not hurt Giulia in the long run. The Beautiful Madness didn't need an Asuka-inspired winning streak to become great in NXT, and she will get another shot in due time and will likely win the gold then. That is, if Vaquer does not hop in front of her in the line, and the fact that there's so many options now only goes to show how exciting this division has become. Perez and Jade working together is a great move, and this surprise result in a post-match segment reinforced this reformed heel alliance at the top of NXT. Backstage, Jade addressed her return to NXT, calling herself the savior of the NXT women's division before being confronted by Perez. Jade said she kinda liked the woman Perez has become, showing a glimmer of respect to her former ally who Jade infamously betrayed in July 2022, a fact Perez hasn't forgotten. With that in mind, Perez did admit that a common enemy may bring them back together, and with Jade and Perez in cahoots, it may be a long time before a title change takes place. With Kalani Jordan on commentary and promising to fight any and all from Fatal Influence, Jaida Parker and Lola Vice looked great early on, but a miscue led to Parker walking out on her tag team partner. Fallon, Henley, and Jacy Jayne capitalized with a Shining Wizard running knee strike combination for the win, and after the match, Henley called out Jordan. Jordan had backup in the form of Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, and after they cleared Fatal Influence, a 6-woman tag match was announced by Vic Joseph for next week. This was the odd match out and lacked the same stakes as the rest of the card, but NXT gave the women time to show out with solid action between 4 great competitors. Henley and Jayne did not quite find their rhythm as a team, but Henley vs. Vice was a major highlight exchange that should be revisited, and it was nice to see Fatal Influence get a win. This was a win the group needed, but their momentum was once again undercut with the arrival of Belair and Cargill, a serious error even if it gave a crowd-pleasing moment for the fans. Next week, Randy Orton will return to NXT to take on Javon Evans, and during NXT's CW premiere, a vignette played promoting the match. Orton said he's heard about how amazing Evans is, and even talk of Javon being the next Randy Orton, and plans to put that theory to the test next week in St. Louis. Despite being known as Braun Breaker, the WWE Raw superstar's heritage is no secret, and WWE have often made reference to him being a member of the Steiner family. As the son of Rick and the nephew of Scott, Breaker has some pretty big shoes to fill, and the former IC champion has plans to pay tribute to an infamous promo by his uncle. In case you need a refresher, Scott Steiner cut his infamous math promo at TNA Sacrifice 2008, in which he used some questionable calculations to prove Samoa Joe couldn't beat him. While speaking to the Wrestling Classic podcast, Bron mentioned that he's working on ring gear inspired by the promo, and that most of his PLE singlets are tributes to the Steiner brothers. Breaker also hinted that he's collaborating with the creative team for a design that'll differ from his previous Steiner math gear, such as the pink one he wore before. While he didn't want to give away too many details, Bron was excited about the development, and we'll have to see when Bron busts out this new ring gear. Are you looking forward to Bron Breaker debuting his Steiner math ring gear? Please share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section below. Before NXT's main event, a muscular woman in a red jacket was shown walking down the road towards NXT, which was likely for the recently signed Delta. Not only did the vignette tease the arrival of the Aussie, but a road sign had the numbers of 10 and 27, so don't be surprised if her debut comes at NXT Halloween Havoc on October 27th. CM Punk was at NXT in Chicago to officiate the title match between Ethan Page and Trick Williams, but he had a special gift for the fans in his hometown. On Twitter, fans shared that Punk had hired pizza trucks, and they were giving out free pizza to the fans in a heartwarming, tasty gesture by the Raw superstar. With their bellies full of pizza, the fans were ready for the main event, and CM Punk got a tremendous reception as the guest referee of Page vs. Williams. Punk ensured things were fair on both sides and made sure Page toed the line as well, and after moving out of the ring, Page's ego edge sent Trick Williams through the announce table. Punk checked on Trick as Page returned to the ring, but Williams nailed a kick to the head on Page and a flurry of offense and a crotch chop for a 2 count. Page got the upper hand back with 2 near falls before hitting a GTS on Trick for another 2, and Punk put those 2 fingers of his right in Page's face as tensions continued to boil. The finish saw Trick escape the ego's edge to nail the trick shot for the win, regaining the NXT title in a noticeably better match than what we saw at Battleground. That's despite the two being a little off the mark with their strikes consistently, but the hyped crowd and strong pace helped the match shine, culminating in an epic title change. Williams should hold the title for a while to come, while the story of Punk and Page will likely lead to a match between these two, given their jaw-jacking during this contest. NXT can transition to Trick vs. Wes Lee, while Page gets a major rub working with the best in the world in 2 exciting feuds to lead the Silver brand in its new era. Over the weekend, the CW's listings for the premiere of NXT listed the show as rated TV 14, breaking from the previous PG classification on the USA Network. This change prompted speculation from fans as to whether it was simply an error or a significant change for NXT, and now we know more. Corey Brennan from Fightful Select reached out to multiple NXT sources, including production staff and talent, but none had any knowledge of an impending shift to reflect a TV 14 rating. A source within WWE production said that it would be unusual for NXT to change while Raw and SmackDown stayed PG, and questioned if this change is down to profanity. They questioned if the TV 14 rating will serve as a means to avoid censoring the crowd chants and other rude language, something we've seen plenty of in recent months on the main roster. It's also unclear how this change may affect advertising, as this is a major reason WWE stays PG, as it means they can work with mainstream brands and be paid huge amounts. There was no notable chance that required censoring during this week's NXT, but we can't count out this new rating as being a precaution just in case a future crowd is more vocal. Ultimately, WWE NXT has undergone a massive change by moving to the CW, and for many, the effects of these changes won't be known until weeks or even months into this new era. Do you think NXT would be better off as a TV 14 show, or do you think the format they have is fine how it is? Please share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section below. In July of this year, Bryan Danielson filed a trademark for "Yes, Yes, Yes," his popular catchphrase that went viral in the 2010s during his rise to the top of WWE. The phrase is still chanted by fans at AEW shows during Danielson's matches, but now WWE is seeking ownership of the term used by their former employee. On September 30th, WWE filed 2 separate trademarks for the "Yes, Yes, Yes" catchphrase, one for the use of the term at events, and another for the use of the term on merchandise. Interestingly, Danielson's filing was labeled as abandoned as of September 20th, and Danielson told Luke James Chats that he received some sort of legal letter from WWE after his filing. As the AEW World Champion and his career winding down, fans shouldn't expect to see Bryan back in WWE, which makes the company's trademark filing all the more peculiar this week. It's been over a year since Adam Cole last wrestled, as an ankle injury suffered in September 2023 has kept him out of action, but he's been spotted at recent AEW events. In an update from Fightful Select, it said that Cole has made remarkable progress in his recovery, including being seen without crutches or a boot at All Out last month. The word backstage is that AEW are hopeful to have Cole back sooner than later, and that wheels have already been put in motion to prepare for that on screen. Cole had been on the road with AEW earlier this year, but stopped as his recovery was being hindered by the travel schedule, and he chose to prioritize his health and recovery. As of August, Cole was set to resume in-ring training, another positive sign. And who do you hope to see him wrestle when he's back in the ring? Let us know down below. In recent weeks, a lot has been said about Penta and Rey Fenix, with reports claiming that the pair had signed with WWE not too long ago. In an update, it was said that this hasn't happened, and when speaking to Mas Lucha, Penta clarified his current contract status as he said, "It's like I was saying, everyone defends their interests. Tony is defending his interests, and we're defending our own. I'm still under contract with AEW, that is my present in AEW, I'm still firm with them, and quite frankly, I don't know what will happen in the future." Could Penta and Fenix one day join WWE? It's entirely possible, but hasn't happened yet, and we imagine Tony Khan will put up quite the fight to keep the Lucha Bros as all elite stars. For decades, Vince McMahon ruled over WWE with an iron fist, with wrestlers and staff seemingly expected to have as little sleep as McMahon himself. Many wrestlers and writers have spoken of being woken in the middle of the night by a phone call by the ex-chairman, but things are much different in this Triple H-led era. On Busted Open Radio, Matt Camp shared how creative meetings are no longer marathon sessions, nor are people waiting for hours or receiving late-night calls from Vince. Instead, Triple H's approach is motivated by a desire to balance his own family life, a sentiment extended to his team as the game has become a model for more work-life balance. Triple H recognizes that everyone deserves to spend time with their loved ones, just as he values time with his family, in another positive shift that represents a new era for WWE. Hard work and creativity are still expected, but in a more manageable and family-oriented frame, as the game believes that ensuring a positive atmosphere gets the best from his crew. It's an important step forward for the company as it continues to evolve under Triple H's leadership, which has been met with positivity for the most part thus far. What do you think about Triple H's approach to running WWE? Do you think the company is in better hands without Vince McMahon? While many things are different in this new era, a lot is the same, such as WWE continuing to face competition in the form of All Elite Wrestling. Jeff Jarrett is currently a member of AEW, which will mark its 5th anniversary of Dynamite tonight, but when the show launched, Jarrett was with WWE and had a very special role. On his My World podcast, Jarrett shared that he and others in WWE were instructed to watch the debut of Dynamite to see what was different. The inaugural Dynamite aired on Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019 from the Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C., all while WWE held a late-night creative meeting at its headquarters. During a break in the action, Jarrett's team discussed their impression of the show, with Double J mentioning to his colleagues just how fresh everything felt. He said on his podcast, "The freshness. It brought back so many memories since a non-WWE program had been on cable television in primetime." Little did Jarrett know at the time that he'd one day be a regular on Dynamite, and we'll have to see what's in store for tonight on the show's 5th anniversary. Wesley and Zachary Wentz held nothing back in their chaotic street fight, which was a spot fest complete with dangerous landings that show how much the former friends now hate each other. Zachary Wentz had Wesley reeling until he hesitated at the wrong time, which allowed Lee to get a cheap shot and a diving chain-wrapped knee through Wentz in a chair to get the win. This match, in a rarity for NXT, may have been too long, as the heat was wearing thin as we got closer to the finish, but they brought it home with Lee earning a massive victory. Despite the diminishing heat in the match, both earned a standing ovation from the crowd post-match, though this had the energy of the end of the Rascals in all forms on NXT. If so, that's a real shame, as Wentz has consistently delivered in this feud, and he and Trey Miguel could still elevate themselves in the NXT Tag Team division. Meanwhile, Lee is likely to step up to the NXT Championship scene. Outside of All Ego Ethan Page, no one on the roster is better established to play the top heel role in NXT. Backstage, CM Punk tried to offer some advice to Lexis King about choosing the right path, though frankly it was impossible to take King seriously with his ridiculous haircut. Just one day removed from turning on R-Truth, The Miz played with the crowd boos before bringing out Oba Femi and Tony D'Angelo for the latest Miz TV. Miz started with questions before this turned into a back and forth between the champion and challenger, though they didn't come to blows as Miz hyped next week's match. This being in Chicago, the boisterous crowd used what chants at D'Angelo, but he found his way in the rhythm and turned the crowd to cheer him, reminding fans that he's from Chicago. Femi seemed fazed by the crowd backing the Don, and while the North American champion walked into Chicago as the favorite, he walked out the clear heel. D'Angelo had to win over a difficult crowd and did so confidently, and while The Miz was barely necessary for this segment, it was a smart piece all around to hype the title match. Femi versus D'Angelo was a good match at No Mercy with little story, but the rematch has a chance to solidify the legacy of both men, regardless of the result. It's likely the ruler will still walk out victorious, but the Silver and Black brand has done enough to sell that the Don could pull off the upset. With MVP now appearing for AEW, Bobby Lashley is expected to be appearing within the next month, and now fans can expect Shelton Benjamin to join his fellow WWE alum. WrestlePurists report that Benjamin is AEW bound and is expected to sign there, and do you think this is a good move for him? Let us know below. And we're ending with tonight's Dynamite, as on Twitter this week, Tony Khan hyped up the show, saying it will have a significant overrun thanks to the TBS network. Khan also teased another announcement that could be made by the time the show goes off the air, and it'll be interesting to see what the AEW president has in store.